Existential crisis. Those are the two words that I can sum up my late teens versus and as well as my early 20s. Existential crisis. Meaning I have a problem with my existence. I was thinking, what I am? What am I? What is this crude body? Am I just this or something more, something less? What is this world, earth, sun, the things that we go after, this temptation, taste, and the things that we get entertained and things that get scared, the fears, the darkness, things that get challenged. Why am I scared for this? And all sorts of things troubled me. And I know so many guys who come to their teenage, the puberty, have some sort of a confusion as well. Me, on the other hand, it was at a whole different level, 100 folds. So that's how I could sum up my entire late teen versus also the 20s.
Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere.
So this existential crisis actually brought me a whole lot of curiosity that actually pulled me towards so many directions. For instance, spirituality. I was never happy and satisfied with whatever I heard in the mainstream. So I was always drawn into deep spiritual learning. I read the Sutra Pitaka, I read the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, and some of these scriptures in Vedas, the yogic practice. For instance, by the time I was 18, I was reading Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and I was known about all these pranayama practices and all that, which is very novel now among the yogic practices. So all those things, because I had a problem with existence. It actually haunted me. I know a lot of people have this, sometimes they get into sort of a depression as well. Luckily, I also had loads of energy, gifted with incredible amount of energy and overdosed with energy, always laughing hysterically for no reason. And that's what a lot of my adults remember me as, like pain in the ass because I laugh for every single thing, right? And on the surface and when I'm hanging out with people. This is my late teens and my early 20s for you. But I do have some regrets, and I'm going to share them. One of the regrets that I had was, someone like me who's actually born to do something completely unique and different, I should have had a proper mentor or a coach as early as possible. Of course, I had so many mentors in my life, a lot of the adults, either from military, either from the top corporate, etc., etc. My mother asked me, can you help this son in this way and that way, the other way? And when my time in the UK, I also had someone call me regularly. But the problem was, there was a huge contrast between that person and myself. Not that that person is bad, they are great, honorable, respectable, experienced people, but just that they just never could connect with my crazy dreams, and they never could understand this whole person of who this person is. So, and also the other coaches, the trainers that I reached out to, be it martial arts, or be it, actually martial arts, I have an incredible trainer I was blessed with, but later on, who were the trainers or the teachers, the mentors, the advisors, the consultants that I reached up to. The problem was that I always saw there's a huge gap in their energy versus mine. They look lethargic as hell. They look like they're done with their life. I was not done with my life. I was beginning my life. So I wanted to have someone who actually invigorate my energy. I wanted to have someone very inspiring. Unfortunately, I couldn't find anyone. I tried to find inspiration from movies, which I did most of my life, and it's still today that I do. Read a lot of books, etc. So anyway, it took me 2 decades and a half, about 25 years, for me to know what I know today. Still, I'm a student of life. There are so many things that I don't know, so many things that have a big question mark in my head, and I'm venturing onto these areas, and I've made a proper plan as well to where to find these and what to find in the next few years to come. But now when I turn back, and all the struggles, the pains, the disappointment, the frustrations that I had, all this unbelievable curiosity that I had in my life to learn about the philosophies, the meaning of life, is actually pay me back in many, many folds. So many lives who come to me from so many walks of life, whether it's be corporate leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, celebrities, cricketers. They're actually, I manage to resolve their issues then and there without even knowing why they're coming for. Thanks to this absolute seasoning and conditioning that I had. Of course,
50 of 33, one delivery quicker than Danushka Gunatilaka's 50. But what a fine innings it's been.
I think all my inspiration comes from Ramindu. Doctored us on various topics to kind of, include in this strategy and how to move strategically. He's a coach in that sense, patience.
On an organization level, we had a very big issue this year, I would say. In the first quarter of this year, we had a bigger, like a partnership kind of agreement, which was, which we were trying to structure. So I think we would have made a big mistake if we had gone in the wrong ways. So it was a big learning curve, but Ramindu was there throughout the process to support us and guide us in that, particular partnership.
The one leader who coached by Ramindu, he was able to hit the targets and the sales by increasing 128% during the financial year 2021. It was amazing.
Personally, that was the first time in like a while, in my, honest to God, in my entire life that I'd actually sat down and had a session like that. And the benefits of it were pretty astounding. When you actually get to talking about what's going through your mind and you kind of sort of get to take that helicopter view of everything you're doing.
Later on, I landed and found an energy that I was always looking for, Tony Robbins. So attending his UPW was one of the most incredible things that happened in my life. So it was a low point of my life when almost, it was a bankruptcy in my business. Landed in his UPW, hired one of his coach, and that gave me a tremendous direction and guidance for me to be who I am today. And I actually got to know a huge network of people who actually like-minded, crazy like me, curious, more curious than me. So, and I always believe that the solution for any problem is actually not straightforward from A to B. There's always 360 approach, which I bring in my coaching principles as well. You say you don't have sales, you're coming for sales strategy, but you have a huge problem from your childhood, learning about money and income in an incorrect way, in a negative way, they're actually holding you back. So no matter what strategy, what consultant that you go to, no matter what world-class strategy that someone hand you in, you are going to struggle. So that's why you need to have this 360 approach, which I'm doing today, thanks to about 25 years of struggling in my life and proper guidance and coaching. So of course, one regret is going to go down in my life as not reaching out to a coach, a mentor who actually match my energy, who understand me. The second regret that I have is again connected to what I just said at the beginning. My gift, the inability for me to capture what I'm absolutely great at. I have a lot of skills. I have a degree in business, I have professional qualification in accounting and business, in web development, software, a little bit of understanding about filmmaking, editing, writing. I can speak, yoga, martial arts, and the list goes on. And any sport that I put myself into, I seem to be good at it. That was actually kind of a great blessing, a joy, as also a curse when you're good at so many things. I spent so many years of my life trying to figure out what exactly I'm meant to do in my life. All my mentors failed, and I failed them, they failed me. So my greatest gift was my ability to connect dots with all sorts of avenues that I studied. Spiritual, business, economy, human behavior, etc. Put into just two words, human behavior. Human behavior was my absolute gift. Now that's what I was exactly studying and learning, and my whole curiosity, the times that I spend hours and hours at night, early mornings I get up, so curious to read human behavior centric books, but I never understood that's my gift. That's one of my regrets. I remember soon after my O-levels, I wanted to do a degree in psychology, which is kind of a upstream battle with my background because they're all about mainstream, the stereotype, either business, either engineering. So I got in touch with one of the international campuses, which was based in Colombo those days. And this is there's a foundation degree, a 3-year degree, etc., but didn't end up doing it because I got influenced by other people. That's not your path. You should be doing, a degree in engineering or something like that. So the one of the regret was not identifying my gift, but lucky enough, I never gave up that the path that I'm looking for. Even my time in the UK, my hours and hours spending in either museums or libraries or speaking to people and reaching out to people. I remember I used to read a book about some sort of a spiritual discovery or a human behavior. I used to write to the author, and with him, if he's based in London, and wait until he get a reply from my Yahoo email those days. And here I'm getting an email, 2 weeks later, and get his address and go and meet him, half an hour conversation. I've done lots of things like that. But this regret I'm sharing, it's absolutely important you find out your gift as soon as possible. But when I sat with my coach and he said, here are the stats roughly. 96% of the world population, they go all the way to their graveyard without having any clue of their greatest gift. They have some sort of a skill, some sort of a learned knowledge, whether it's professional skill or something, and they make a living out of it. They get busy with it. They have a family, they make children, and goes on with the normal, frame of life. But every single human being has an absolute incredible gift that you can serve a great number of people, whether it's a society, a community, or a country, or world. But like I said, 96, huge. A majority of the people go all the way to the graveyard without even knowing it. So therefore, the graveyard is like a gold mine. They're full of billion-dollar ideas that was never capitalized. Books never published. Movies never made. Songs never composed. Could have entertained, inspired millions and millions of people. It's such a sad sight. It hit me so hard. I thought this is going to be one of my prime objectives as a coach, to help people to identify what they're absolutely great at, their gift. It's not an easy task. For me, it's easy now because I've put myself into so many different scenarios. But largely, you try to figure out by yourself, it's a tough task. You may figure out if you decide, I'm going to find that out probably in 20-25 years. Hiring coach is the best thing, but this is one of my objectives now. So in this movie clip that really resonated with me, it's one of the Sherlock Holmes movies where he said, there's nothing more elusive than the obvious fact. What you're great at, your greatest gift, is right before your eyes. You're doing it right now, but ignoring it. And that's how tricky this is.
Moriarty was after a piece of the machine, not the poison.
There's nothing more elusive than an obvious fact. The wire-free invention was the game all along.
And Adler was just the diversion.
He knew I'd chase after her, thereby leaving.
That brings me to the third regret of my life, which is connected to the gift. Doing my advanced levels, enormous waste of time, especially my one of the best time of my life, anybody's life, right? So in our time, we do O levels, and there's a huge gap till you do your A levels. You get your results, and then you choose your subjects, and it's about nearly 9 months gap. And I kind of feel sad because when I turn around, I see myself wandering around everywhere, reaching out to that psychology degree. I want to do a foundation degree in business instead of doing A levels. I tried my level best to avoid this whole curse because I knew this is not my thing. At the same time, my hormones are running wild, and I was very, very social, a creature back then. Hardly any time at home, and always hanging out with people. And partly due to because we don't have social media back then. It's all about physical interaction. So not just meeting girls, but just hanging out with friends, doing stuff. So, and I know this is kind of a rebellious thing to say, kind of a disruptive thing to say. A level is not for many. Sri Lanka, we have statistically about 330,000 something. Numbers are not accurate, but roughly 330,000 people sit for A levels. We have a university capacity for about 25,000, something like that. What happens to the rest of the 300,000 people? What mostly does is crush their spirit because you do something that you shouldn't have been doing. Imagine that your greatest gift is to become a great chef, a great filmographer, author, musician, cricketer, all those things that I mentioned. You don't need A levels. You don't even need a degree. So you waste a chunk of time, and I did that as well. As one of my regrets, I could have actually easily be professional and be useful rather than depending on my parents way before that I actually made it my career. But anyways, I did what I did and ended up going to UK. All that is good. But I think if I go back, something that I would change is I would definitely not do A-levels. The fourth regret in my 20s is not being able to get rid of those pathetic group of friends earlier rather than later. I regret that all my 20s, all my 30s, even to date, I should have actually got rid of them much, much earlier. I could have done an incredible thing. Actually, there was a spiritual teacher that I used to pay a visit time and again, and it was a she, and she advised me at the age of 17 to get rid of my friends. It was after O-levels, and I was hanging out with friends way too much back then. I knew it's the right thing to do. It's just that I didn't have the insight and the bigger picture. Where am I heading? If I knew I'm becoming this in my early 20s, I would have done it at a heartbeat. I didn't know that. So, and it took me such a long time. And hindsight, now I know what actually was playing in me was a psychological trait called FOMO, fear of missing out. A fear of missing out is actually a phenomena that actually ingrained in our psychology, ingrained in our system. It's coming from about 2.5 million years in the human evolution. Because during that time, we had to stay in the herd. We had to stay in the tribal. If you're not in the tribal, if you've been kicked out, often something that happens, and your days are numbered on Earth. Because in a couple of days or 2-3 days time, you're going to be hunted by all the threats and you'll be dead. For that reason, they always want to stick with that herd, stick with that tribal. Now it's hard-coded into our genetics and it plays as a FOMO. In fact, this fear of missing out is being manipulated in an incredible way by social media. So Facebook, Instagram, etc., etc. That's what pulls us back into this whole thing because of fear of missing out. So there's something that you cannot eliminate. But once you understood, just like any weakness, once you understood them, once you exposed them, they're half dead. So you have the ability to, this is the whole thing that I'm feeling right now. It's just a uncivilized trait that I have, which I'm not going to respond to. I could have done that. I didn't have the insight. So it took me a long time, but I had disputes because my whole philosophy is different. Even in early 20s, I have a lot of spiritual drives. I want to practice so much of it. And little that, probably some of those guys are watching this, they might get a shock of their life. I used to share a house with a bunch of friends at early 20s. I used to get away from their house and go and hang out with some of the spiritual seekers, mainly the Hare Krishna devotees who practice Krishna consciousness. I had an incredible time, one of my most blessed time that I had in my life.
Whether it's a parent, a mother, a father, a guru, or anyone, the purpose is to help the person grow and be free. The purpose is not to try to keep someone down for one's own perverse pleasure.
I had great association because of them, incredible conversations, etc. So later on, what they want to do was, the friends, what they want to do was looking at the next movie and looking at where can we get laid. This party, that party, this network, even a damn funeral. They go there looking for a chick. Of course I was drawn into girls. I dated so many, but I didn't have that whole, I want to look for a girl every damn corner that I walk into. I didn't have that thing because I had something else troubling me. Again, fueled by my existential crisis. So they want to party, they want to waste their time, and they just want to lie around and do just one thing. Do the degree and find a job. I always knew I was made to do something new, something big. I felt that, and every time that I talk about it, I didn't get that response. So at one point, I left them for good, lived by myself. Man, that was an incredible journey since then. I wish I did it, 4-5 years before that. So if you are a late teenager or early 20s guy who are surrounded with friends, good to have friends, but ask and check and look around and see, do they have big goals? Do they have an inspired life? Or the bunch of dudes who are meeting every Friday, Saturday, wasting their time, drinking and partying, which will never add any value to you. You'll never be a high-value human being later on. And guaranteed, you're going to regret 100 times in another 5 years' time. So those are the regrets that I have in my 20s. But since I talked about regrets, I wanted to give some acknowledgement for that early 20s Ramindu. When I turn back, I actually get amazed with my own self. One of the things that I never compromised at my late teenage as well as my early 20s was, no matter what I did, I was always truthful. Every girl that I dated, I was always truthful from the very first day. I always say, this is what I do. I actually mucked up a few times as well, because now I know I broke some of those dating rules that worked for guys. Like for instance, at the first date, I would say how passionate I am about martial arts and how rigorous I practice. I'm crazy for that. I've posted up Bruce Lee at my room. And now, man, I'm happy that those girls actually decided to date me, because that's kind of a red flag. Most of the girls will back away, right? But I was at least truthful. I used to talk a lot about Matrix, and later on I realized, not many girls who actually give a toss about Matrix. And I talked about that so much. But either way, I was truthful. And one of the biggest pluses that I had a conversation with my mom very, very recently, that she gave me the credit 20 years later. She said, one thing that I really admired about you was when every time I asked you, because I was in the UK, right? Every time she called me and asked, I was always truthful about whatever's going on. There was a time that I used to have some alcohol. She asked, my mom always been connected. She found out in some way or the other, and she asked me, and I said, yes, I do drink. And she asked me about this girl, that girl, are you dating this girl that I don't want you to date? I said, yes, I do. I am dating her. In fact, she's right here with me right now. Really uncomfortable conversation that I had. Sometimes I remember over there in my room with my phone, I used to do, and I tell the truth anyway, right? Because it's so difficult. It would have been such an easy thing for me to lie. I never did it. So I applaud my early 20s Ramindu for always being truthful. As a result, man, universe gave me incredibly great gifts. Some of the secrets that even some of the people are unaware of, looking for, and go all the way to the graveyard not even knowing, I got to know them. I think that's universe way of paying the price, giving a gift. And secondly, I never actually lost my faith in terms of spiritual practices. I always knew I'm going to find what I'm looking for. I had this, like I said, I had this whole problem of existential crisis, and I always knew the answer lies in the spiritual world. I also saw so many people resorting to drugs and so many other substances as well. I never knew the answer doesn't lie in a material thing, just indulging. So luckily, fortunately, I never actually did drugs. Had I done that with that whole thing that in my head, I would have drawn into that, I would have been addicted easily. So some of the guys who are addicted to drugs, they're actually meant to do something big. That's also, it's there, if you know them. So I never lost faith, never lost hope. I always knew I'm going to find the way. I'm going to find ways to just eliminate the darkness. I remember this conversation that I had with an English friend back and forth, and he used to say, this world, this entire universe is full of darkness, and he said, darkness ruled the universe. I never wanted to believe it. Although he's pretty convincing, these buggers are very philosophical as well. So I used to argue with him. This conversation used to happen in a very popular place called Leicester Square in London, Zone 1. It's a very popular touristic site as well. We used to work close by. So we used to grab a coffee and sat there in that park and have this conversation. And I always used to challenge him. I said, no man, there's light rules everything. But I never could beat him. And one day, without him, I was passing the Leicester Square. In the center of Leicester Square, there's a statue of Sir William Shakespeare. So I had a glance at this whole statue. I've seen it all this time, but I never read what's actually inscripted there. And it said, there is no darkness but ignorance. I was like, holy crap, that is the answer. We were just sitting there for weeks and weeks arguing about it. I went and dragged him there and I showed him. I think we were both 20 or 21 back then. He was like, holy shit. He was English by then. He was born and bred there. And he never read that thing. So, and that is the answer. There is no darkness, only ignorance. Ignorance in Pali and Sanskrit meaning avidya. So because of lack of wisdom, we suffer. Because of lack of wisdom, we're in the darkness. That's the truth. So I'm going to end this video with that note. And find wisdom. Set a mission to find that wisdom. And with this channel, I'll share as much as possible for you to be enlightened in your life. Have a great consciousness, be a great life, a great being, a person of absolute useful for your family as well as for society and for your corporate. So thanks for watching, and speak to you again in another video. Live with spirit.